Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Love, commerce, and a contentious history. Valentine's Day is one of the biggest festivals globally. On this day, chocolates, flowers, and cards generate hundreds of millions of dollars in business worldwide. However, whether this day should be celebrated or not is a huge debate. But the most important question is, where does all this money, these millions of dollars spent on this day, actually go? Diving deep into history, from the Roman Empire to Christianity. Approximately 2,000 years ago, there was only one superpower in the world, the Roman Empire. As this empire reached the peak of its power, at that very time, Allah God sent a prophet, Jesus, Isa, alayhi salam, within that same empire. Jesus was very different from all other prophets. As he grew up, Allah God bestowed upon him a unique power with which he could completely heal any sick person with just a touch of his hand. Later, Jesus used this power to help the poor people of Palestine, which made him the most famous person in Palestine at a very young age. After that, wherever he went, thousands of people would gather to see him. But Jesus spoke things in front of them that no one had dared to say before. In fact, he began to expose the Jewish scholars of that era. People were greatly inspired by his words, but these very words made the Jewish scholars of that time his biggest enemies. After this, all these Jewish scholars started thinking about how to get rid of Jesus. Jesus was not someone to be intimidated by any of this. Even in such a difficult situation, he made a very bold decision. Instead of small towns in Palestine, he would go directly to its capital, Jerusalem, and challenge the Jewish scholars there. He headed straight for Jerusalem, and thousands of people gathered to see him. In this way, with a crowd of thousands, Jesus entered Jerusalem and went straight to the Holy Temple, Baitul Maqdis. As soon as Jesus entered the Holy Temple, he was astonished to see that the Jewish scholars there had turned the temple into a bank instead of a place of worship, seating only those who collected donations from the poor and exchanged currency. When Jesus saw all this, he became very angry and immediately ordered all the large tables there to be overturned and drove all the bankers out of the Holy Temple. When the Jewish scholars saw all this with their own eyes, they understood that they could no longer tolerate him. Consequently, these Jewish scholars conspired with the Roman superpower to kill Jesus. But at the very last moment, Allah, God, saved Jesus. After this, the Jews thought that the story of Jesus would end here, and the world would forget him. However, Jesus' 11 followers began spreading his religion, Christianity, throughout the world. Christianity spread so rapidly that gradually the emperors of the Roman Empire began to fear this new religion. They thought that if this continued, Christianity would soon abolish their old religion. To stop all this, the Roman emperors had only one solution: kill all the Christians. After that, the Roman Empire used its full might to persecute Christians, and as time passed, this persecution only intensified. Finally, 200 years later, a new emperor sat on the throne of the Roman Empire, Emperor Claudius. This emperor was very different from all other rulers, because Claudius reached the throne of the Roman Empire not just because of his father, but as an ordinary soldier. Before becoming emperor, he was Rome's greatest wrestler. As soon as Claudius became the world's greatest emperor, he used his army to crush every rebellion against him. But despite such a large army, his troops were not fighting with the zeal he expected. When Claudius asked why this was the case, he was told that most of the soldiers in the Roman army were very young, and as soon as these young men got married, their desire to fight completely disappeared. Hearing this, Claudius said, "Ah, so that's the reason." After that, in Christian stories today, it is said that Claudius issued a very strange order. From today onwards, no young soldier in the entire Roman Empire shall marry. Banning marriages did increase the speed of the Roman army, but the public began to hate their emperor because after the ban on marriages, indecency and cases of rape increased significantly in the Roman Empire. And just as indecency reached its peak, it was at this exact time that an ordinary Christian priest, Saint Valentine, decided that the emperor's rule could no longer be tolerated. What happened next is not written in history, but in Christian stories it is said that Saint Valentine, without caring for his own life, began secretly marrying young couples, hidden from the Roman emperor. When people found out about this, they came from far and wide to Saint Valentine. In this way, Saint Valentine alone started a massive campaign against indecency in the Roman Empire. But gradually, so many people were married that this news somehow reached Emperor Claudius of the Roman Empire. This was a great rebellion against the warrior emperor. Finally, Emperor Claudius ordered, "Whoever this Valentine is, find him and behead him." After that, the Roman army spread everywhere, and finally, Saint Valentine was caught and thrown into prison. When Valentine's followers found out about this, they were very sad. But they could do nothing against an emperor like Claudius. So they started a custom that still exists in the world today. For as long as Saint Valentine was in prison, every day the couples he had married would come and place flowers in front of Valentine's jail cell. After a long time in prison, Saint Valentine's last day had finally arrived, February 14th. The night before his death, Valentine wrote his last letter to a girl, and after writing the entire letter, at the very end of it, he wrote something that is still spoken in the world today. From your Valentine. The very next day, on February 14th, Saint Valentine was brutally killed. And from here, a new festival was born in the world. February 14th. 2 festivals, 1 day. The evolution of Valentine's Day. February 14th was not an ordinary day in the Roman Empire of that era. It was a day when all the people of the Roman Empire gathered in one place to celebrate a grand festival to please their god. This was no ordinary festival. During this festival, the people of the Roman Empire crossed all limits of indecency and engaged in such shameless acts that it is very difficult to explain them here. So now, February 14th in the Roman Empire was a great confusion. On one hand, Christians celebrated Valentine's Day, where people were encouraged to abandon indecency and move towards marriage. On the other hand, the Romans celebrated a very shameless festival on the same day. So having 2 festivals on the same day was a great confusion. Gradually, with the passage of time, the old religion of the Roman Empire faded away, and only one religion remained throughout the empire, Christianity. After this, Christian scholars collectively abolished the old festival of indecency, and throughout the empire, people began celebrating Valentine's Day on February 14th, commemorating marriages. For the next 1,000 years, Valentine's Day was just a small festival known only to a few people in Europe. But after 1,000 years, a man in London made Valentine's Day famous all over the world. And that man's name was William Shakespeare, who is considered the world's greatest writer and artist today. When Shakespeare began using Valentine's Day in his stories, the whole world started to learn about this day, after which big names in history began to celebrate Valentine's Day. But even then, Valentine's Day did not get its true identity from Shakespeare's novels, but from the world's largest war, the World War. In this war, millions of people left their families to go to battle, which was a very difficult task, because millions of fathers were separated from their children, husbands from their wives, and sons from their mothers. Now, a small American businessman with a tiny printing shop was keenly observing all these emotions of the people. And from that very shop, he began to revive the concept of Valentine's Day. He printed millions of Valentine's Day cards and delivered them to every home in America. In fact, so many Valentine's cards were printed during the World War that people not only sent them to their families, but also to their enemies. These cards looked like Valentine's cards on the outside, but they contained only insults. The marketing ploy, Hallmark and modern Valentine's Day. As soon as the war ended, Hallmark grew from just a small shop into one of the world's largest companies. But after the World War, Hallmark noticed that people were slowly forgetting to celebrate Valentine's Day, causing their business to decline rapidly. So, from here, they changed their entire strategy and devised a very dangerous new plan that is still used in the world today. In this plan, Hallmark began directly targeting women through newspapers, radio, and TV, making them feel that if a woman did not receive a gift on this day, she had no worth.
Mary, what's the matter?
You forgot to get me a Hallmark Valentine card.
And only a Hallmark card.
People once again started celebrating Valentine's Day even more than before, and Hallmark began making money again. Seeing this, other companies followed Hallmark to make money. For example, Cadbury, which made heart-shaped chocolates for the first time and ran a campaign that made giving chocolates along with Valentine's cards mandatory. After that, gold, diamond, and flower companies also started using Valentine's Day. The dark side of Valentine's Day and the final outcome. And even today, social media companies use this strategy the most, making Valentine's Day a huge festival. However, these big companies create so much pressure on people for Valentine's Day that some people cannot bear it.
When gunfire broke out on Valentine's Day.
That's why Valentine's Day is also at the forefront of depression worldwide. And many people around the globe take their own lives due to the depression associated with this day. Today, Valentine's Day is celebrated all over the world, but some cultures, like Muslims and some Hindus, view it negatively.
Sir Robert, Jesus hates Valentine's Day.
This is because today, religious people believe that these large corporations have forgotten the true mission of Saint Valentine and are using it solely for their own profit, turning it back into the same indecent festival of the Roman Empire. People have completely forgotten that the original purpose of this day was to lead people away from indecency and towards marriage. In short, if someone is celebrating Valentine's Day today, they should know that it's not truly out of love, but because large corporations are manipulating them.
Subscribe.